The palace of Emperor WorldHFY stood tall on the planet Drakmor, its golden towers reaching toward the purple sky. Inside, hundreds of servants moved through the hallways carrying trays, cleaning floors, and preparing meals. The Emperor ruled over 12 star systems, and his palace was the center of power for the entire Dravaxian Empire. Claire Bennett worked in the main kitchen, her hands moving quickly as she chopped vegetables for the evening meal. She had been working here for 3 years now, ever since she left Earth to find work among the stars. The pay was good, and she sent most of it back home to her family. Her younger brother Danny needed medicine, expensive medicine that their family could not afford without her help. Claire was one of only 15 humans working in the palace. Humans were new to this part of space, and most aliens had never seen one before. She kept to herself, did her work, and tried not to draw attention. That was the safest way to survive here. The head cook, a large creature with 6 arms, called out orders in a booming voice. Claire moved to the storage shelves, reaching up for a container of spices on the top shelf. Her sleeves slipped down as she stretched, revealing the dark purple marks on her wrist. She quickly pulled the sleeve back up and grabbed the container. "Everyone stop," a deep voice commanded. The entire kitchen fell silent. Claire's heart jumped into her throat. She turned slowly and saw him standing in the doorway. Emperor WorldHFY himself. The Dragon Emperor was massive, standing nearly 9 feet tall. His scales gleamed like molten gold in the kitchen lights, and his amber eyes seemed to glow from within. 2 horns curved back from his head, and his tail moved slowly behind him like a serpent. He wore robes of deep red and black, and a crown of silver sat upon his brow. WorldHFY walked slowly through the kitchen, his clawed feet clicking against the stone floor. The servants bowed low, but Claire could feel her legs shaking. The Emperor sometimes inspected the palace without warning, but she had never been present during one of his visits. The Emperor's eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail. Then his gaze landed on Claire. She felt as if those amber eyes could see right through her. He stopped walking. "You there," WorldHFY said, pointing at Claire. "Come here." Claire's mouth went dry. She set down the spice container and walked forward on unsteady legs. The other servants backed away, giving her a clear path to the Emperor. She stopped a few feet away and bowed her head, not daring to look up at him. "Look at me," the Emperor commanded. Claire raised her head slowly. Up close, WorldHFY was even more terrifying. His scales reflected the light like mirrors, and she could see her own frightened face in them. Heat radiated from his body as if a fire burned somewhere inside him. "Show me your arms," WorldHFY said. Claire's stomach dropped. She knew what he had seen. Slowly, she rolled up both sleeves, revealing the bruises that covered her forearms and wrists. Some were fresh and dark purple. Others had faded to yellow and green. A few were shaped clearly like fingers where someone had grabbed her too hard. The Emperor's eyes narrowed as he studied the marks. The temperature in the kitchen seemed to rise. Some of the servants closest to him took a step back. "Who did this to you?" WorldHFY asked, his voice low and dangerous. Claire kept her eyes down. "No one, Your Majesty. I am clumsy. I bump into things." It was a lie, and not even a good one. But it was the lie she had been told to say if anyone asked. Overseer Krell had made that very clear. If she told anyone about what he did, she would lose her job. And if she lost her job, her family would lose the money she sent home. Danny would not get his medicine. "Look at me," WorldHFY said again. Claire forced herself to meet his eyes. The Emperor stared at her for a long moment, and she felt as if he could read every thought in her head. "I have lived for 300 years," WorldHFY said quietly. "In that time, I have learned to recognize a lie when I hear one. Those bruises did not come from clumsiness. Someone has hurt you. Multiple times, over a long period." Claire said nothing. Her hands trembled, and she clasped them together to try to stop the shaking. Vorthak's tail lashed once, striking the floor with a crack that made everyone in the kitchen jump. I will ask you one more time, and I suggest you think carefully about your answer. Who has been harming you? The kitchen was so quiet that Claire could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to point at Overseer Krell and tell the Emperor everything, about how Krell demanded extra money from the human workers, about how he hit them when they could not pay, about how he threatened to have them sent back to Earth in disgrace if they complained. But fear kept her mouth shut. Fear of losing everything she had worked for, fear of letting her family down. Fear of what Krell might do if she spoke. "I fell, Your Majesty," Claire whispered. "Please, I just fell." The Emperor studied her for another long moment. Then he turned to a tall reptilian creature in armor who stood near the door. "Scrix," Vorthak said. "Come here." The armored figure stepped forward and bowed. "Yes, my lord?" "You are my head of security," Vorthak said. "I want you to investigate this matter. Find out who is responsible for this human's injuries. Search every record, question every servant, examine every security recording. I want answers, and I want them quickly." Scrix bowed again. "It will be done, my lord." Vorthak looked down at Claire again. "You may return to your work. But know this. In my empire, servants are protected by law. Those who abuse their position and harm those under their care face severe punishment. When I learn the truth, and I will learn it, justice will be served." The Emperor turned and walked out of the kitchen, his crimson robes flowing behind him. The moment he was gone, the other servants began to whisper among themselves. Claire's legs finally gave out, and she sat down hard on the floor. The head cook came over and helped her up. "Are you all right?" he asked in his rough voice. Claire nodded, though she felt anything but all right. She had tried to protect herself by lying, but now an investigation had begun. Overseer Krell would know soon, if he did not know already, and when he found out, he would be furious. She went back to her workstation, her mind racing. Part of her felt a tiny spark of hope. The Emperor himself had taken notice. Maybe, just maybe, things could get better. But another part of her, the part that had learned to be cautious and afraid, knew that this could make everything worse. In a small office on the other side of the palace, Overseer Krell sat at his desk, reviewing reports. He was a member of the Gordanian species with rough gray skin and small, mean eyes. When his communicator buzzed, he answered it without looking up. "Sir," a nervous voice said, "the Emperor was in the kitchens today. He saw the human female, the one with the bruises." Krell's hand froze over his datapad. "What did she tell him?" "She said she fell, sir. She did not mention you." Krell leaned back in his chair, thinking. That was good. The human had kept her mouth shut, just as he had ordered. But an investigation would be a problem. He would need to be careful, cover his tracks, maybe even threaten the other humans to make sure their stories matched. He smiled, showing sharp teeth. The Emperor might be powerful, but Krell had been hiding his activities for 2 years now. He knew how to avoid getting caught, and if the human caused too much trouble, well, accidents could always happen. Scrix took his job seriously. As head of palace security, he had served Emperor Vorthak for 20 years, and he knew when his master was truly angry. The Emperor's voice had been calm in the kitchen, but Scrix had seen the way his scales had begun to glow with inner heat. That was always a bad sign. Within an hour, Scrix had assembled a team of investigators. They pulled security recordings from every camera in the palace. They interviewed servants from different departments. They examined work schedules and assignment records. And slowly, a picture began to form. The human servants all worked under the same overseer, a Gordanian named Krell. When questioned separately, each human told similar stories. They were clumsy, they bumped into things, they had accidents, but their eyes told a different story. Their eyes showed fear. Scrix dug deeper. He found financial records that did not match up. Krell had been collecting fees from the human workers, claiming they were mandatory payments for housing and food. But those fees were far higher than what other servants paid, and there was no record of where the extra money went. It simply disappeared into Krell's personal accounts. The security recordings were even more damning. One showed Krell grabbing a human worker by the arm and dragging him into a storage room. Another showed him pushing a young human woman against a wall. The recordings had no audio, but the body language was clear. This was not discipline. This was abuse. By the next morning, Scrix had compiled a full report. He brought it directly to the Emperor's private study, where WorldHFY sat reading diplomatic messages on a holographic display. "My lord," Scrix said, bowing, "I have completed the investigation." WorldHFY dismissed the display with a wave of his hand. "Tell me." Scrix laid out everything he had found. The financial theft, the physical abuse, the pattern of targeting human workers, specifically because they were far from home and had no powerful advocates. 5 other humans besides Claire had been suffering under Krell's supervision, all too afraid to speak up. As Scrix spoke, the Emperor's scales began to glow brighter and brighter. The air around him shimmered with heat. By the time the report was finished, WorldHFY's eyes blazed like twin suns. "Where is Krell now?" the Emperor asked, his voice like grinding stones. "In his office, my lord." "Bring him to the throne room. Immediately." 30 minutes later, Overseer Krell stood before the Emperor's throne, flanked by 2 guards. He had come expecting a routine inquiry, perhaps a warning at worst. He was not prepared for what he saw. Emperor WorldHFY sat on his throne of black stone, and his entire body glowed with barely contained rage. The other nobles and officials in the throne room had backed away, giving the Emperor space. They all recognized the signs of a dragon on the edge of losing control. "Overseer Krell," WorldHFY said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "you have been accused of abusing servants under your care. What do you have to say?" Krell put on his most innocent expression. "My lord, I do not know what lies you have been told, but I assure you I have done nothing wrong. I run a tight department, yes, but I have never harmed anyone." WorldHFY gestured to Scrix, who activated a holographic display. The security recordings played for all to see. Krell grabbing workers, Krell pushing them, Krell standing over them while they cowered on the floor. The blood drained from Krell's face. He had not known about the recordings. He had been so careful to avoid witnesses, but he had forgotten about the cameras. "Still nothing to say?" WorldHFY asked coldly. Krell's fear turned to anger. If he was going down, he would not go quietly. "They are just humans, my lord," he said, his voice rising. "Barely above animals. No one cares what happens to them. They are weak, worthless creatures from a backwater planet. I was teaching them discipline, nothing more." The throne room went completely silent. Even the guards looked shocked. No one spoke that way in front of the Emperor, especially not about any of the Empire's residents. WorldHFY stood slowly from his throne and walked down the steps toward Krell. Each footstep seemed to make the floor tremble. He stopped directly in front of the Overseer, towering over him. "Barely above animals," the Emperor repeated softly. "Let me educate you about humans, Overseer. Perhaps you should have done your research before deciding they were beneath you." WorldHFY began to pace, his tail swishing behind him. "Humans come from a planet called Earth. Do you know what kind of planet Earth is, Krell? It is what we call a death world. The gravity is higher than most inhabited planets. The weather is violent and unpredictable. The native wildlife includes creatures that hunt humans for food." He turned back to face Krell. Humans evolved as pursuit predators. They would chase their prey for days, sometimes weeks, never stopping, never resting, until their target collapsed from exhaustion. They have more endurance than almost any other species we have encountered." Krell said nothing, his small eyes wide with growing fear. "Their history is soaked in blood," Vorthak continued. "They fought 2 wars that engulfed their entire planet, killing hundreds of millions of their own kind. They developed weapons capable of destroying their whole world. And yet, after each war, they rebuilt. They grew stronger. They reached for the stars." The Emperor's scales glowed brighter. "Humans invented the concept of human rights, the idea that every person deserves basic dignity and fair treatment. They extend this principle not just to their own species, but to all thinking beings. They have laws against exactly the kind of abuse you have been inflicting." Vorthak leaned down, bringing his massive head close to Krell's face. "And you dare to call them worthless? You dare to abuse them in my palace under my protection? You have not just harmed servants, Krell. You have brought shame upon this empire." The Emperor straightened up and looked at his guards. "Strip him of his rank and position. He will be tried under imperial law for abuse of authority, theft, and assault. The penalty for such crimes, as he well knows, is severe." Krell's legs gave out, and he fell to his knees. "Please, my lord, I did not know. I did not understand. I will make it right. I will apologize. Please, mercy." "You had the chance to show mercy," Vorthak said coldly. "You chose cruelty instead. Now you will face justice. Take him away." The guards dragged Krell from the throne room as he begged and pleaded. The Emperor watched him go with no expression on his face. When the doors closed behind the former overseer, Vorthak turned to one of his advisors. "Send for the human called Claire Bennett," he said. "Have her brought to my private study in 1 hour, and send word to the other human workers as well. I want them to know that Krell has been arrested and will face punishment. They are safe now." The advisor bowed and hurried off to carry out the orders. Vorthak returned to his throne and sat heavily. Around him, the nobles and officials began to whisper among themselves. The Emperor had shown unusual concern for a group of servants. This was not normal behavior, even for Vorthak, who was known to be more just than most rulers. In the servants' quarters, word spread quickly about what had happened. The 5 other human workers gathered together, hardly daring to believe it. Krell was gone. They were safe. Some of them cried with relief. Claire sat on her bed in her small room, staring at the wall. A messenger had come to tell her that the Emperor wanted to see her in his private study. She did not know what that meant. Was she in trouble? Would she be sent home? Her mind spun with possibilities, each more frightening than the last. She changed into her cleanest uniform and tried to smooth down her hair. Her hands were still shaking as she made her way through the palace corridors to the Emperor's study. 2 guards stood outside the door. They nodded to her and opened it. The study was smaller than Claire had expected, lined with books and data crystals. A large window looked out over the capital city below. Emperor Vorthak stood by the window, his back to her. He looked almost like a statue, perfectly still. "Come in, Claire Bennett," he said without turning around. "Close the door behind you." Claire did as she was told, her heart pounding. The door clicked shut, and suddenly she was alone with the most powerful being in 12 star systems. Emperor Vorthak turned from the window to face Claire. His amber eyes studied her for a long moment before he spoke. "Please, sit," he said, gesturing to a chair near his desk. The chair was built for someone much larger than Claire, but she climbed up and perched on the edge of it. Her feet barely touched the floor. She kept her hands folded in her lap to hide the shaking. Vorthak moved to his desk and pulled up a holographic file. Claire could see her own face in the display, along with rows of text in several languages. "I have been reviewing your employment record," the Emperor said. "You have worked in my palace for 3 years. In that time, you have never been late, never made an error in your duties, and never filed a complaint. Your supervisors rated your work as excellent until Krell took over your department 8 months ago. After that, the ratings became adequate. Do you know why? Claire shook her head. She had not known her ratings had changed. Because Krell wanted you to seem like a mediocre worker, Vorthak explained. That way, if anyone noticed the bruises or if you disappeared, there would be less attention paid. You would be just another unremarkable servant who could not handle the work. The Emperor closed the file and sat down in his own chair, which creaked under his weight. Tell me about your family on Earth. Claire was surprised by the question. My family, Your Majesty? Yes. You send most of your salary back to your home planet. I want to know why. Claire took a deep breath. My mother works at a factory. My father died when I was 16. I have a younger brother named Danny. He has a disease called leukemia. It is a sickness of the blood. The treatment is very expensive, and without it, he will die. So you came here to work, Vorthak said. Far from your home, in a strange place to save your brother's life. Yes, Your Majesty. And when Krell began to hurt you, you said nothing because you feared losing your job and the money your family needs. Claire nodded, not trusting her voice. Vorthak leaned back in his chair. Let me ask you something, Claire Bennett. When Krell struck you, did you ever consider striking back? You could have fought him. You could have reported him to security. You could have killed him in his sleep. Why did you not? Claire looked up, startled by the direct question. Because violence would not have helped, Your Majesty. If I fought back, I would have been arrested. If I killed him, I would have been executed. Either way, my family would lose the money. My brother would die, so I endured. You endured, Vorthak repeated slowly. You accepted pain and humiliation to protect those you love. Do you believe that makes you weak? Most people would say it does, Claire said quietly. The Emperor shook his head. Then most people are fools. What you did required more strength than swinging a sword or firing a weapon. Warriors face their enemies for hours or days. You faced your enemy every single day for 8 months and never broke. That is the strength of will, and it is rarer and more valuable than people realize. He stood and walked to a cabinet on the wall. From it, he pulled out an old book, bound in dark leather. He set it on the desk between them and opened it carefully. This is the Book of Champions, Vorthak said. It contains the names of every person who has held the position of Imperial Champion in the history of the Dravaxian Empire. Do you know what an Imperial Champion is? Claire shook her head. It is an ancient tradition, the Emperor explained. In the old days, when my ancestors first built this empire, they named champions to represent the ideals the empire should value. Courage, justice, wisdom. The champion speaks with the Emperor's voice in matters that require a moral judgment. They serve as a reminder of what we should be, not just what we are. He turned the pages slowly, showing her names written in flowing script. Some pages had pictures of the champions, aliens from dozens of different species. The last Imperial champion was named 200 years ago, Vorthak continued. Since then, the position has remained empty. Many have asked me to fill it, but I never found anyone worthy. Until now. Claire felt her stomach twist. Your Majesty, I do not understand. Vorthak closed the book and looked directly at her. I want to name you as my Imperial Champion, Claire Bennett. I want you to be the voice of justice in my empire. For several seconds, Claire could only stare at him. Then she found her voice. Your Majesty, I cannot. I am nobody. I am just a kitchen worker from Earth. I have no training, no education beyond basic school. I know nothing about politics or law or how to be a champion. You need someone strong, someone important. I need someone who understands what it means to be powerless, Vorthak said firmly. The nobles who advise me, the generals who command my armies, the administrators who run my bureaucracy, they are all powerful. They have never known what it is like to be at the mercy of someone cruel. They cannot see injustice when it happens to those beneath them because they have never been beneath anyone. He placed one large clawed hand on the book. But you have. You know what it is like to be hurt and unable to fight back. You know what it is like to be ignored and dismissed. You know what it is like to suffer in silence because speaking out would cost you everything. That knowledge is what I need. Claire's mind raced. This could not be real. Things like this did not happen to people like her. Your Majesty, the nobles will never accept me. I am human. I am common. They will think you have gone mad. Let them think what they wish, WorldHFY said. I am the Emperor, and my word is law. If I say you are my champion, then you are my champion. The question is not whether they will accept it. The question is whether you will accept it. Claire looked down at her hands, still marked with fading bruises. A week ago, she had been scrubbing floors and trying to avoid Krell's anger. Now the Emperor himself was offering her a position of power and authority. It felt like a dream or a trap. What would I have to do? She asked quietly. You would study law and governance, WorldHFY said. You would learn about the different species in the Empire and their customs. You would attend council meetings and offer your perspective. Most importantly, you would investigate complaints and injustices that come to your attention. When you find wrongdoing, you would bring it to me, and together we would correct it. He paused. I will not lie to you, Claire. This will not be an easy position. You will face opposition from those who benefit from the way things are. You will be mocked, threatened, and tested. But you will also have my full support and authority. Those who harm you will answer to me personally. Claire thought about Danny, back on Earth, waiting for his next treatment. She thought about the other human workers who had suffered under Krell. She thought about all the people in this vast empire who might be suffering right now, with no one to speak for them. If I do this, Claire said slowly, I want to help not just humans, but everyone who needs help. All the species in the Empire, anyone who is being hurt or cheated or abused. That is exactly what I want as well, WorldHFY said, and for the first time Claire saw him smile. It was a frightening expression on a dragon's face, all sharp teeth and golden scales, but there was warmth in it too. Then I accept, Claire said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. I will be your champion. WorldHFY picked up the book and turned to a blank page near the end. He produced a pen that looked tiny in his massive hand. In careful script, he wrote her name, Claire Bennett, Imperial Champion of the Dravaxian Empire. The ceremony will be held tomorrow, he said. The entire court will attend. I will formally announce your appointment, and you will take the oath of the champion. After that, your new life begins. He closed the book and looked at her seriously. I want you to understand something, Claire. I am giving you power, but power is a dangerous thing. It can corrupt even the best people. Promise me that you will stay true to who you are. Promise me that you will always remember what it was like to be powerless so that you use your power wisely. Claire met his eyes. I promise, Your Majesty. I will never forget where I came from. Good, WorldHFY said. Now go, rest. Tomorrow, your life changes forever. Claire slid down from the chair and bowed deeply. As she walked to the door, she heard the Emperor speak one last time. Claire, he said. Thank you. She turned back, confused. For what, Your Majesty? For reminding me why I rule, WorldHFY said quietly. For showing me that my empire has forgotten to care for its weakest members. You have given me a gift without knowing it. Now I will help you give that same gift to others. Claire left the study with tears in her eyes, though she could not have said if they were tears of fear or hope or relief? Probably all three. In her small room, she sat on her bed and tried to process what had just happened. Tomorrow she would stand before the entire imperial court. Tomorrow she would become something she had never imagined. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, she was still just Claire from Earth, a girl who had come to the stars to save her brother, and somehow, impossibly, she had found a way to save so many more. The throne room of the imperial palace had never been so crowded. Every noble, every high-ranking official, every military commander in the capital had been summoned to attend the ceremony. They filled the vast chamber, talking in hushed voices, wondering why the emperor had called this gathering with so little notice. Claire stood in a small side room wearing robes that had been delivered to her quarters that morning. They were deep blue, embroidered with silver thread that caught the light. A palace attendant had helped her dress and arrange her hair. Looking at herself in the mirror, Claire barely recognized the person staring back. "They are ready for you," a guard said from the doorway. Claire took a deep breath and followed him. Her legs felt weak, and her heart hammered against her ribs. The corridor seemed impossibly long. Then the massive doors to the throne room swung open, and she stepped through. Every eye in the room turned to look at her. Claire had never seen so many different kinds of beings in one place. There were tall, slender Athari with their glowing skin, muscular Corvan warriors covered in battle scars, floating Nethians whose bodies were made of energy, and hundreds more, representing dozens of species from across the empire. She walked down the center aisle toward the throne, where Emperor WorldHFY sat waiting. The crowd parted before her, and she could hear the whispers starting. "Who is that? Is that a human? Why is she wearing champion's robes? This must be a mistake." Claire kept her eyes forward, trying to ignore the stares and the muttering. She reached the base of the throne and knelt, as she had been instructed. WorldHFY stood, and his voice filled the chamber. "Lords and ladies of the Dravaxian Empire, commanders and administrators, citizens all, I have summoned you here to witness an important moment in our history." The room fell silent. When the emperor spoke with that tone, everyone listened. 200 years ago, my grandfather named the last imperial champion," WorldHFY continued. "Since that day, the position has remained empty. Many have asked me to fill it. Many have put themselves forward as candidates. I have refused them all, because none were worthy of the responsibility." He gestured to Claire. "Today that changes. Rise, Claire Bennett of Earth." Claire stood on shaking legs. WorldHFY descended the steps of his throne and stood before her, holding a silver circlet in his hands. "An imperial champion serves as the conscience of the empire," the emperor said, his voice echoing off the high ceiling. "They speak for those who have no voice. They defend those who cannot defend themselves. They remind us all that the measure of a civilization is not how it treats the powerful, but how it treats the powerless." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Claire could see shock and confusion on many faces. Some looked angry. A few looked curious. "This human woman has shown qualities that have become rare in our empire," WorldHFY said. "She has endured suffering without becoming cruel in return. She has faced injustice without seeking revenge. She has sacrificed her own comfort for the sake of her family. These are the virtues we should honor." He placed the silver circlet on Claire's head. "Do you, Claire Bennett, swear to uphold justice in the Dravaxian Empire? To speak truth to power? To defend the weak and punish the wicked? To serve as my champion in all matters of conscience and law?" Claire's voice came out stronger than she expected. "I do swear it, Your Majesty." "Then, by my authority as Emperor of the Dravaxian Empire, I name you Imperial Champion. Let all who hear these words know that you speak with my voice. Your decisions are my decisions. Your judgments are my judgments. Any who harm you harm me." WorldHFY turned to address the crowd. "Let it be known throughout the empire. The position of Imperial Champion has been filled. Claire Bennett is now the second most powerful person in this empire, answering only to me. Give her the respect her position demands." The Emperor returned to his throne, and Claire remained standing at the base of the steps, facing the assembled crowd. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. Then, one by one, they began to bow. Not everyone did it willingly. Claire could see the reluctance on some faces. But they bowed, because the Emperor had commanded it. The ceremony ended, and the crowd began to file out of the throne room. Claire heard the whispers growing louder as people left. A human? As Imperial champion? The Emperor has lost his mind. This is an insult to every noble family. Give it a week. She will fail, and things will go back to normal. But not everyone was hostile. As Claire made her way toward the exit, an elderly Athari woman stepped into her path. She had kind eyes that shone like starlight. "I am Ambassador Lyra," the woman said. "I represent the Athari worlds. I want you to know that I support your appointment. My people value compassion and wisdom above strength. I believe you will serve the Empire well." "Thank you," Claire said, grateful for a friendly voice. Over the next few days, Claire began her education. The Emperor assigned her tutors who taught her about imperial law, the history of the Empire, and the customs of different species. She studied for hours each day, her head spinning with new information. She also received her first visitors in her new office. A Nethian merchant came to complain about unfair taxes. A Corvan worker reported unsafe conditions in the mining colonies. A young Gordanian child asked if Claire could help find his missing father. Each person who came to her had been ignored by the regular bureaucracy. They came to the Imperial Champion as a last hope. Claire listened to each story carefully and took detailed notes. She began investigations, following up on leads and demanding answers from officials who were used to being left alone. When she found wrongdoing, she brought it to Emperor WorldHFY, who took swift action. But not everyone was happy with her work. 3 weeks after her appointment, Claire attended her first meeting of the Imperial Council. It did not go well. The council chamber was smaller than the throne room, but no less grand. 20 of the Empire's most important leaders sat around a long table. Emperor WorldHFY sat at the head, and Claire took her seat at his right hand, in the chair reserved for the Imperial Champion. Lord Thax, a powerful military commander, glared at her from across the table. He was a massive being, even larger than the Emperor, with dark red scales and scars covering his body. He had led the Empire's armies for 30 years and was used to getting his way. "Now that we are all here," Thax said, looking pointedly at Claire, "we can discuss real matters. The expansion into the Outer Rim requires more resources. I propose we increase taxes on the agricultural worlds." Several council members nodded in agreement. Claire raised her hand. "Yes," Thax said, his tone making it clear he did not want to hear from her. "I have reviewed the agricultural world reports," Claire said. "Many of those worlds are already struggling. Their harvests have been poor for 2 years due to climate problems. If we raise their taxes now, people will starve." Thax laughed, a harsh sound. "Respected champion, with all due respect, you have been in this position for 3 weeks. I have been leading armies for 3 decades. I understand the necessities of empire. Sometimes sacrifices must be made." "Sacrifices," Claire repeated. "You mean letting people die of hunger so you can build more warships?" The room went very quiet. Several council members looked shocked that she had spoken so bluntly. Thax's eyes narrowed. "The Emperor's pet human thinks she can lecture us on how to run an empire," Thax said. "You wear the title of champion. But what have you actually done? You have never commanded troops. You have never negotiated a treaty. You have never made hard decisions that affect billions of lives. You are a servant playing at being important." Claire felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. You are right. I have never done those things. But I have done something you have not. I have been powerless. I have been at the mercy of people who did not care if I lived or died. I know what it is like when the powerful make decisions that crush the weak. She leaned forward. You want to know what makes me qualified to be champion? It is not military skill or political experience. It is the understanding that every decision we make here affects real people with real lives. Those farmers on the agricultural worlds are not just numbers in a report. They are individuals with families and hopes and fears. And if we take more from them when they have nothing left to give, we are not being strong. We are being cruel. Thax stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. This is ridiculous. I will not sit here and be lectured by a human who was working in the kitchens a month ago. Your Majesty, I must protest this appointment. She is not fit for this position. Emperor WorldHFY had been silent throughout the exchange, watching. Now he spoke. Sit down, Lord Thax. But Your Majesty, sit down. Thax sat, though his expression showed his fury. WorldHFY looked around the table. The Imperial Champion has raised a valid concern. We will not increase taxes on the agricultural worlds. Instead, we will send them aid to help with their climate problems. As for military expansion, it will proceed at a slower pace. Lord Thax, you will make it work with the resources you have. Thax's face darkened, but he nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. The meeting continued, but the tension remained. Claire could feel the hostile stares from many around the table. She had made an enemy of one of the Empire's most powerful military leaders. But she had also saved countless people from starvation. That had to count for something. After the meeting ended, Ambassador Lyra caught up with Claire in the hallway. That was brave, she said, and foolish. Thax is not a good enemy to have. I know, Claire said. But what else could I do? Let people starve? Lyra smiled. You are exactly what this empire needs. Do not change, Claire Bennett, and watch your back. 6 months passed since Claire became Imperial Champion. The palace servants no longer whispered when she walked by. The nobles had stopped openly mocking her, though many still resented her position. She had proven herself through countless small victories, helping workers get fair wages, exposing corrupt officials, and ensuring that the Empire's laws protected everyone, not just the powerful. But Claire's mind was not on her work today. She sat in her office, reading a message from Earth for the 3rd time. Her mother's words were careful, trying not to worry her, but the meaning was clear. Danny's condition had gotten worse. The treatment he had been receiving was no longer working. There was a new experimental therapy available, but it was expensive, and more importantly, it was caught up in bureaucratic delays. The company that made the medicine was refusing to release it until they received approval from multiple government agencies, a process that could take months. Danny did not have months. A knock on her door pulled Claire from her thoughts. Come in, she called. Emperor WorldHFY entered, ducking his head to fit through the doorway. In the past 6 months, he and Claire had developed a working relationship built on mutual respect. They met most days to discuss the cases she was investigating. You look troubled, WorldHFY observed, settling into the reinforced chair on the other side of her desk. Claire handed him the message from her mother. The Emperor read it quickly, his expression darkening. Your brother is the reason you came here, WorldHFY said. The reason you endured Krell's abuse. And now he is dying because of politics and corporate greed. I have been researching it, Claire said, her voice tight. The company holding the medicine is called Nexus Pharmaceuticals. They have the treatment ready, but they are delaying the release to drive up the price. By the time they finally distribute it, hundreds of people will have died, including my brother. WorldHFY was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he stood. Earth is not part of our empire, but they are our allies. As Imperial Champion, You have the authority to negotiate on behalf of the Empire. I will assign you my personal flagship and a full diplomatic team. You will go to Earth and resolve this situation." Claire looked up at him, hardly daring to hope. "Your Majesty, are you certain? This is a personal matter." "It is also a matter of justice," Vorthak said firmly. "If a corporation is letting people die to increase their profits, that is wrong, regardless of which planet it happens on. Go to Earth, save your brother, and while you are there, show them what an Imperial champion can do." 2 weeks later, Claire stood on Earth for the first time in over 3 years. The Imperial flagship had landed at the main spaceport, causing quite a stir. It was not every day that a Dravaxian warship arrived in Earth's orbit. She was accompanied by Ambassador Lyra and a team of legal experts from across the Empire. Together, they made their way to Nexus Pharmaceuticals' headquarters, a gleaming tower in the center of New Seattle. The CEO of Nexus, a man named Gregory Hart, received them in his executive office. He was in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit, and he had the confident smile of someone who had never been told no. "Imperial Champion Bennett," Hart said, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. "What an unexpected honor. What brings you to Earth?" "My brother is dying," Claire said bluntly. "He needs the leukemia treatment your company has developed. So do hundreds of other people. But you are delaying the release to manipulate the market price." Hart's smile did not waver. "I am afraid you have been misinformed. We are simply following proper regulatory procedures. Safety must come first." Ambassador Lyra spoke up. "We have reviewed your submission to the regulatory agencies. The treatment has already passed all safety trials. The only delay is coming from your own company's legal department, which is filing additional paperwork to extend the approval process." Hart's smile finally faded. "With all due respect, Ambassador, this is an Earth matter. The Dravaxian Empire has no jurisdiction here." Claire leaned forward. "You are correct. We have no jurisdiction, but we do have influence. Earth wants to expand trade with the Empire. There are mining contracts pending, technology exchanges being negotiated, and diplomatic agreements being finalized. All of those require my recommendation to the Emperor." She met Hart's eyes steadily. "Release the treatment now. Make it available to everyone who needs it at a fair price, or I will recommend that all pending agreements with Earth be delayed pending a full investigation into corporate practices that allow companies to profit from human suffering." Hart's face reddened. "You cannot threaten me. I have lawyers. I have connections in every major government on this planet." "I am not threatening you," Claire said calmly. "I am telling you how this will work. You have built your fortune by exploiting sick people. That ends today. You can release the treatment voluntarily and be remembered as someone who finally did the right thing. Or you can fight me, and I will make it my personal mission to ensure that your company's practices are exposed to the entire galaxy." "Your brother is dying," Hart said, a sneer in his voice. "You are emotional. You are not thinking clearly. If you interfere with my business, I will tie this up in courts for years. Your brother will be dead long before any of this is resolved." Claire felt anger surge through her, but she kept her expression neutral. "I am emotional. You are right. I am angry. But I am also the Imperial Champion, and I have resources you cannot imagine. Ambassador Lyra, show him." Lyra produced a data pad and slid it across the desk. "This is a list of all Nexus Pharmaceuticals business operations in neutral space and allied territories. Mining operations, research facilities, distribution networks. All of them rely on treaties and agreements that can be reviewed at any time. And guess who has the authority to initiate those reviews?" Hart's face went pale as he looked at the list. Claire continued. "I also have the ear of the Emperor. If I tell him that Earth's corporations are allowing people to die for profit, he will take action. Trade agreements will be suspended. Technology transfers will stop. Earth's economy depends on access to galactic markets. Are you willing to risk all of that to protect your profit margin? This is blackmail, Hart said, but his voice had lost its confidence. This is justice, Claire corrected. You have been holding people's lives hostage. Now you know how it feels. So what will it be, Mr. Hart? Release the treatment or watch your company collapse? Hart stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached for his communicator. Get me the legal department and tell regulatory affairs to expedite approval for the leukemia treatment. Full speed. I want it available within the week. Claire stood. 3 days, Mr. Hart. Not a week. Every day you delay, more people die, and I will be watching. If there are any more delays, any more obstacles, I will be back. And next time, I will bring Emperor Vorthak with me. She turned and walked out, followed by Ambassador Lyra and the rest of her team. In the elevator down, Lyra smiled. I believe you have made another enemy today. I am getting used to it, Claire said, but her hands were shaking. She had just gone up against one of Earth's most powerful corporate leaders and won. It still did not feel real. 3 days later, Nexus Pharmaceuticals announced that the new leukemia treatment would be released immediately at a reduced cost. Claire was at the hospital when Danny received his first dose. Her mother cried and hugged her for a long time. Her brother, thin and tired but still smiling, took her hand. You did this? Danny asked. I had help, Claire said. A lot of help. My sister, the Imperial Champion, Danny said, shaking his head in wonder. When you left, you were just trying to pay for my medicine. Now you are saving hundreds of people. Claire squeezed his hand. I am still just trying to save you, Danny. Everything else is extra. But as she said it, she knew it was not entirely true anymore. Yes, she had come to Earth to help her brother. But while she was here, she saw so much more that needed fixing. The same problem she had been fighting in the Dravaxian Empire existed on Earth, too. Corporations putting profits over people, bureaucrats more concerned with rules than with lives, systems designed to protect the powerful while ignoring the weak. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire met with Earth's government leaders. She did not try to force change, but she asked questions and made suggestions. She shared what she had learned in the Empire about creating systems that protected workers and held corporations accountable. Some leaders listened, others dismissed her, but seeds were planted. When it was time to return to Drakmor, Claire's family came to the spaceport to see her off. Her mother hugged her tightly. Come home soon, she said. I will, Claire promised, but I have work to do out there. Danny, looking healthier already, grinned at her. Go save the galaxy, sis. I will be fine now. On the flight back to the Empire, Ambassador Lyra sat with Claire in the observation deck, watching Earth grow smaller behind them. You have changed, Lyra said. When you first became champion, you were nervous and uncertain. Now you walk into rooms and command respect. I had good teachers, Claire said. The Emperor taught me that power without compassion is tyranny. You taught me that diplomacy is sometimes more effective than force, and people like Krell, in their own terrible way, taught me what happens when no one speaks up against injustice. What will you do when we return? Lyra asked. Claire thought about the reports waiting on her desk, complaints from mining colonies, concerns about working conditions in the shipyards. Petitions from a dozen different worlds, all asking for help. The same thing I have been doing. Listen to people who are not being heard. Fix problems that everyone else ignores. Try to make the Empire a little bit better every day. And make enemies while you do it, Lyra added with a slight smile. And make enemies, Claire agreed. But that is okay. If everyone likes you, it probably means you are not changing anything important. When they arrived back at Drakmor, Emperor WorldHFY was waiting in the landing bay. As Claire descended the ramp, he smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. "I received reports of your activities on Earth," WorldHFY said. "You blackmailed a corporate executive, influenced government policy, and generally caused chaos. Well done." Claire laughed. "I learned from the best, Your Majesty." They walked together through the palace halls toward the throne room. Along the way, servants bowed to Claire, not out of fear or obligation, but out of respect. She had become someone they knew would listen to their problems, someone they could trust. In the throne room, a crowd had gathered. Word had spread about Claire's success on Earth, and beings from across the Empire wanted to tell their own stories, to bring their own problems to the Imperial champion. Claire looked at the crowd, then at Emperor WorldHFY. "This is going to take a while," she said. "Then we had better get started," WorldHFY replied. "This is what you signed up for, champion. This is the work that matters." Claire took her place beside the Emperor's throne and called forward the first petitioner. It was a young Corvin woman with bruises on her arms, fear in her eyes, and a story that needed to be heard. Claire listened carefully, just as the Emperor had listened to her 6 months ago. The cycle continued. Those who had been hurt found healing. Those who had been ignored found someone who cared. And slowly, day by day, case by case, the Dravaxian Empire became a little more just. Years later, when historians looked back on this time, they would call it the beginning of the Second Golden Age. They would write about the reforms that transformed the empire. They would analyze the new laws that protected workers and held leaders accountable. They would discuss the expansion of rights across dozens of worlds. But at the heart of all those changes was something simpler. A dragon emperor who saw bruises on a human servant and cared enough to ask why. And a young woman who turned her pain into purpose, her suffering into strength, and her fear into the courage to speak for those who had no voice. Claire Bennett had come to the stars to save one life. Instead, she had helped save millions, and she was just getting started.